WAFCON 2026. WAFCON is the Women's African Cup of Nations. It has arrived in Morocco. Welcome to BallAfrica, the podcast where we tell stories, analyze the football, examine people shaping the beautiful game across Africa and the diaspora. Today, we're talking about something that deserves far more attention than it receives: African women's football. And what better time to have that conversation than on the opening day of the 2026 Women's African Cup of Nations? Well, opening day, it started today, but I know you guys are going to watch this podcast tomorrow. It started in Morocco. And today, we had the amazing opportunity to see Algeria beat Senegal 1-0. And then in a very brilliant and tantalizing match, we saw Morocco beat Kenya 4-0. Amazing game, though, and a great performance from the Kenyan starlets. Hopefully, they can improve as the tournament goes around. But we have a lot to talk about this particular edition of WAFCON. Stay tuned. The tournament has now been expanded to record 16 teams. It used to be 12. Now we have 16. And it's taking place from July 26 today through August 16. There is no longer a tournament that should be treated as a side event to men's football. This is African football. And quite frankly, the women have been carrying the African flag with enormous pride for years. For many people around the world, the conversation about African football begins and ends with the men's game. But if you really are paying attention, you will see something remarkable happening in women's football. African players are now starring in the NWSL in the United States, in France, in Spain, in England, in Italy, across the world. Leading women's league, African national teams are becoming more competitive. The talent pool is expanding. The infrastructure is improving, and the financial investment is beginning to grow. But the reality is also that African women's football still has a long way to go. So today, we are going to look at the 16 teams competing at WAFCON 2026, the favorites, the dark horses, the stars you should be watching, where some of Africa's best players are playing in their club, the records that define this competition, the work being done by CAF, which is the Confederation of African Football, and national federations, and the uncomfortable questions. Are we doing enough to develop African women's football? Let's start with WAFCON. What's the landscape? WAFCON, again, is the Women's African Cup of Nations. The WAFCON 2026 is historic because it is the first time we're featuring 16 teams instead of 12. The four groups are Group A, Morocco, Algeria, Senegal, Kenya. Group B, South Africa, Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, and Tanzania. Group C, we have Nigeria, Zambia, Egypt, and Malawi. Group D, we have Ghana, Cameroon, Mali, and Cape Verde. The top two teams in each group advances to the quarterfinals, but there is something even bigger at stake. The tournament is also part of the qualification path for the 2027 FIFA Women's World Cup in Brazil. The four semifinalists qualified directly for the World Cup, while the quarterfinalists who do not reach the semifinals still have a route through playoff matches for a place in the continental playoffs. So every match matters, every goal matters, and for many of those nations, this is not just about winning a trophy. It's about changing the future of women's football in their country. Let's talk about the favorites, the standards of African women's football. We're going to start with the team that has set the standard for African women's football for decades. Nigeria, the Super Falcons are the defending champions, and they are record holders with 10 WAFCON titles. That's an extraordinary record. Nigeria has historically been the dominant force in African women's football, and even when the team has gone through periods of transition, the talent pool has remained extraordinary the same. Nigeria has produced players such as Perpetua Nwocha, Florence Omabeni, Mercy Agide, Cynthia Owa, Asisat Oshola, Francisca Odega, Rashidat Ajibade, Chiamaka Nandozi. And the current generation is still extremely talented. Rashidat Ajibade is one of the most important players in the Nigerian team. She has won WAFCON titles and has moved to Paris Saint-Germain, one of the biggest clubs in women's football. She is technically gifted, aggressive, intelligent, and capable of changing a match. Then you have Asisat Oshola. Oshola is one of the most accomplished African women's football players of her generation. she has played at the highest level in England and in the United States, including with Barcelona and BFC in California. Her career has helped change perceptions of what African women's football can achieve. And in goal, Nigeria has Chiamaka Nandozie, who has become one of the continent's leading goalkeepers and now plays in England with Brighton and Hove Albion. Nigeria would be expected to go deep into this tournament, but they are not unbeatable. The challenge for Nigeria is whether they can continue to combine their traditional physical and technical strength with tactical consistency. The Super Falcons remain one of the favorites, but this may be one of the most competitive WAFCON tournaments ever. Let's not forget the host with a new expectation, Morocco. Morocco is probably the most fascinating team in this tournament. Today, they beat Kenya 4-0. That's why they are considered the top favorites. The Atlas Lionesses have transformed dramatically over the last several years. Morocco reached the finals of the previous WAFCON on home soil, losing 3-2 to Nigeria. Now they are back at home, and this time the expectation is not simply to reach the final, the expectation is to win. The face of the Moroccan women's football is Ghislaine Chebak. Chebak is a leader, a creator, one of the most recognizable players in African women's football. She has been one of the leading scorers at recent WAFCON tournaments and has carried an enormous amount of responsibility for Morocco. At 35, she represents experience, leadership, and a generation that has helped bring Moroccan women's football to the new level. Morocco also benefits from something that cannot be underestimated: investment. The Royal Moroccan Football Federation has made serious investment in women's football, including professional structures, training infrastructure, and national team development. Morocco has also invested heavily in football facilities and hosted the tournament for the third consecutive edition. This country is becoming one of the continent's most important football development centers. The question is whether Morocco can convert infrastructure and investment into its first WAFCON title. This is a team I believe can win the tournament. Now, let's talk about the champions. The champions who won their crown back, South Africa is another major power. The Banyana won their first WAFCON title in 2022. The victory was historic. It showed that Nigeria's dominance was not permanent. South Africa has a strong technical identity and has produced some of the most recognizable players in African women's football. One of the biggest names is Thembi Nkatana. Nkatana has played professionally in the United States and has also played in Europe. She is one of Africa's most dangerous attacking players. She has pace, creativity, and the ability to score important goals. South Africa also has a strong football culture and a growing professional league structure. But the challenge for Banyana is consistency. Winning the tournament is difficult. Defending a reputation is even more difficult. South Africa remains one of the teams capable of winning this tournament, the most dangerous attacking team on the continent. If there is one team that can terrify any opponent in this tournament, it may be Zambia. The Copper Queens have become one of the most exciting teams in African women's football, and they have two extraordinary attacking players, Barbara Banda and Rochelle Kundananji. Barbara Banda plays for Orlando Pride in Orlando, Florida in the NWSL. She has established herself as one of the most dangerous forwards in world football. She is powerful, fast, incredibly difficult to defend. In the NWSL, she has already shown that she has what it takes to be dominant at the highest level. Rochelle Kundananji plays for BFC, also in the NWSL. Together, Banda and Kundananji give Zambia a frightening attacking combination. And that is before we even discuss the rest of the team, because Zambia has also demonstrated that it is no longer satisfied with simply participating. The Copper Queens have ambitions, they have experience, they have players playing in elite professional leagues, and they have shown that they can beat the biggest teams in Africa. The major question is whether Zambia can find the defensive balance necessary to win a tournament, because the talent is absolutely there. Now, we can talk about these great teams that are potentially going to be successful without talking about the dark horses. There are a few dark horses. Ghana is one of the historic names in African women's football. The Black Queens have a long tradition and have produced some excellent players. They may not be the overwhelming favorites, but they are a team nobody should take lightly. Players such as Evelyn Badu, represents a new generation of Ghanaian talent. Ghana has the football culture and the talent. The question is whether the team can find consistency at the highest level. Cameroon. Cameroon is another team with enormous potential. The indomitable Lionesses have traditionally been one of Africa's strongest teams. They have physical strength, athleticism, and the talent of players. Cameroon is the kind of team that can make it extremely uncomfortable for any opponent. If they can be organized tactically and maintain consistency, they can go deep into this tournament. Côte d'Ivoire. Let's talk about Côte d'Ivoire. Côte d'Ivoire is one of the teams I would watch carefully. The country has significant football talent, and its women's team has the potential to surprise. The Ivorian Federation has been working to strengthen the women's game, and the country has players capable of competing at the highest level. This could be a tournament where Côte d'Ivoire announces itself more forcefully on the continent stage. Let's go to Mali. Mali is another team that could cause problems. As one of the dark horses, the country has a growing women's football structure and talented players. They may not be among the traditional favorites, but the expansion to 16 teams gives the nation like Mali a bigger platform. And that is one of the biggest benefits expanding WAFCON. More teams get exposure. More players get seen. More federations are forced to take women's football seriously. Now there are some newcomers. Two teams deserve special attention of the newcomers because they are making their WAFCON debuts. Cabo Verde and Malawi. Cabo Verde is one of the most exciting emerging football nations in Africa. Their men's team recently made history by qualifying for the FIFA World Cup and making it past the round of 48. Now, the women's team is entering its own continental moment. This is incredibly important. Football development should not only be about the men's national team. Cape Verde now has the opportunity to establish itself as a serious women's football nation. And then there is Malawi. Malawi is one of the great stories of this tournament. The Sculptures are making their WAFCON debut. They have one of the most exciting football families in the tournament. Tabitha Chawinga and Temwa Chawinga. Tabitha is one of the greatest African female footballers of her generation. She has played in several countries and currently plays for Olympique Lyonnais in France. She has been one of the most prolific African goal scorers in international football. Her sister, Temwa, plays for Kansas City Current in the NWSL in the United States. Temwa has already won the NWSL Golden Boot. So Malawi arrives at its first WAFCON with two players who have experience at the highest levels of professional football in women's football. This is an incredible storyline. The Chawinga sisters are not just representing Malawi, they are representing the possibility of what African women football can become. Now that we've talked about the teams, the favorites, the dark horses, and the newcomers, let's talk about the players themselves. There are certain players we have to watch. Let me give you a short list of players I believe football fans should be watching and should enjoy watching during this tournament. Barbara Banda. Barbara Banda from Zambia. She plays for Orlando Pride, a powerful, explosive striker who can change a match in seconds. Rakael Kudananji, Zambia, plays for Bay FC, one of the fastest and most dangerous attacking players in the tournament. Rashida Ajibade, Nigeria, Paris Saint-Germain, a technically gifted leader and one of the most complete attacking players in African football. Asisat Oshola, Nigeria, a global African football icon, one of the most decorated African women's players of all time. Chiamaka Nandonzi from Nigeria. She plays for Brighton and Hove Albion, one of the leading goalkeepers in African women's football. Chilandlen Shibak, Morocco, the captain and creative heart of the host nation. Thembi Itatlana, South Africa, one of Africa's most dangerous attackers. Tabitha Chawinga, Malawi, a prolific goal scorer and one of the continent's most remarkable football stories. Temwa Chawinga, Malawi, a proven NWSL goal scorer and one of the most exciting forwards in the tournament. And there are many more. This is actually the point. African women's football is no longer depending on one or two stars. The talent pool has expanded. Now, the bigger question is Africa doing enough? Now let's move beyond the tournament because celebrating the talent is important, but we also have to be honest about the challenges. African women's football still faces major problems. Many national teams do not have consistent competitive calendars. Some players struggle to receive timely compensation. Some countries lack professional women's leagues. In some places, girls still do not have access to proper pitches, equipment, or coaching. And too often, women's football is treated as a social responsibility rather than a serious support. rather than a serious sporting and commercial opportunity. That has to change because the potential is enormous. CAF has taken some important steps. The WAFCON prize money has reportedly increased over recent years, reaching $1 million for the winner. The tournament itself has expanded from 12 to 16 teams. CAF has also been working to strengthen women's football administration through workshops across different regional zones. That matters because football development is not only about players, it's also about administrators, it's also about commercial directors, it's also about marketing, it's also about governance, it's also about people who understand how to build sustainable football systems. FIFA has also created a number of women's football development programs available to member associations with the goal of significantly increasing participation globally. But national federations also have to do their part. Morocco has made significant investment in infrastructure and development. South Africa has built a recognizable professional league structure. Nigeria continues to produce elite talent through a deep football culture. Zambia has benefited from the rise of professional opportunities for its top players. Ghana and other countries are also working to develop their domestic structures. But the next phase must be about sustainability, not just producing one great generation, not just qualifying for the tournament. The goal should be to create systems that produce great players every single generation. So here is the real opportunity. Here is what I believe. Africa does not have a talent problem for women football. Africa has a system problem. The continent has extraordinary female footballers. The talent alone is not enough. We need better youth development, more girls, football programs, stronger domestic leagues, better coaching education, improved medical and sports science support, better player contracts, more commercial investment, more media coverage, better broadcasting, more investment from corporations, and greater protection for players. And perhaps most importantly, we need to stop treating women's football as charity. Women's football is a sport. It's an entertainment product. It is a commercial opportunity. It is a pathway for young girls, and it is an important path for African identity. I want to do this, something exciting. My WAFCON prediction, right? So, by the way, let me ask, who do you think will win this tournament? Nigeria has the history. Morocco has the home advantage. South Africa has the experience of winning. Zambia may have the most explosive attack. Ghana and Cameroon have the pedigree. And teams like Cote d'Ivoire, Mali, and Senegal could create problems. My personal prediction, I believe the tournament is wide open. If I had to identify the strongest group of contenders, I would say Nigeria, Morocco, South Africa, and Zambia. However, if I had to identify the strongest group contenders, I would say Nigeria, Morocco, South Africa, and Zambia. But I would not be shocked if we see a surprise semi-finalist. And that is exactly what makes this tournament so exciting. The most important thing about WAFCON 2026 is not only who wins the trophy. Zambia watching Barbara Banda. For a young girl in Morocco watching Ghislaine Chebak. For a young girl in Nigeria watching Asisat Oshowo or Rashidat Ajibadi. This tournament sends a message. You belong in football. You belong on the pitch. You belong in the stadium. You belong in the boardroom. You belong in the coaching staff. You belong in the future of African football. And if African football is serious about reaching its full potential, then women's football cannot be treated as an afterthought. The future of African football is not only male. The future of African football is female. The WAFCON is one of the places where the future is being built. So let's watch the matches. Let's talk about the players. Let's support the teams. Let's tell the stories. Let's give African women's football the attention, investment, and the respect it deserves. This is BallAfrica. I am Easy Lise, and until next time, keep telling Africa's football story.